Good morning. Teresa Nikas here. I'll be your host for today's episode of Quiet Echo, What the Week Taught Us About Waiting. I've been up for about an hour, just sitting and watching snow come down. There's something about a Saturday morning in December that invites reflection. The week is behind you. Christmas is close. The world feels, for just a moment, like it might actually slow down. I've been thinking about two stories we covered this week. On the surface, they couldn't be more different. One was about a pipeline in Alaska, billions of dollars, tax negotiations, political maneuvering. The other was about teenagers and their phones, kids deciding, on their own, to look up from their screens. Oil executives and teenagers. Boardrooms and bedrooms. What could those possibly have in common? I think the answer is waiting. Both stories are about who we trust to tell us what's good for us. And what happens when we stop believing them. Lars wrote on Wednesday about the Alaska LNG project. Governor Dunleavy wants to cut property taxes by 90% to get a natural gas pipeline built. The pitch is familiar: give us what we want now, and prosperity will follow. Except less today so something gets built tomorrow. But Lars asked a better question. If a company can't make a $44 billion project work while paying the same taxes everyone else pays, why should Alaskans bend over backwards to help them? The gas has been sitting under the North Slope for a long time. It's not going anywhere. It can wait. Then on Thursday, Chloe wrote about a Pew Research study. Nearly half of American teenagers now believe social media is harming people their age. And 44% say they've tried to cut back on their own. These kids weren't lectured into this. Nobody took their phones away. They lived the experience, the anxiety, the comparisons, the loneliness that somehow deepens the more connected you become, and they decided something had to change. They're learning to wait, too. To be present in rooms that don't glow. To look up. Here's what strikes me about both stories: the people closest to the ground are seeing more clearly than the people at the top. The borough mayors in Alaska, the ones who would host the pipeline infrastructure, absorb the costs, and deal with the consequences, weren't even consulted before the tax deal was announced. Now they're asking for real math. Real impact data. A seat at the table. They're not saying no. They're saying slow down. Show us. The teenagers aren't waiting for Congress to regulate Silicon Valley. They're not waiting for Mark Zuckerberg to develop a conscience. They're making their own choices. One phone placed face down at a time. We live in an age that rewards speed. Urgency is the constant sales pitch. Act now. Limited time. Before it's too late. Before the opportunity closes. But urgency can be a manipulation. It can be a way of bypassing wisdom. Of pressuring people into decisions they haven't had time to think through. I think about this in my own life. How often I feel rushed. How often I make choices because someone convinced me I had to decide right now. And how rarely that pressure turns out to be real. The gas will still be there. The teenagers will still have phones. The question is whether we make decisions from pressure or from principle. This week, from an Alaskan pipeline to a teenager's bedroom, the quiet voices said the same thing: we can wait. We can ask better questions. We don't have to accept the first deal on the table just because someone tells us it's now or never. Maybe that's the thread that runs through everything worth doing. The willingness to slow down. To trust what's real over what's rushed. To believe that patience isn't weakness. It's wisdom. The urgent voices are always the loudest. But the patient voices, the ones willing to wait, to watch, to think it through, they're usually the ones worth listening to. As we head into this last week before Christmas, here's my quiet question for you: what in your life is asking you to slow down? And what might you see more clearly if you did? Thanks for spending your Saturday morning with me. I'm Teresa Nikas, and this has been Quiet Echo. I'll see you on Monday.
You've been listening to the Cedar Valley News Podcast, where small-town voices meet the headlines shaping our world. from faith and family to front porches and fields. We'll be back with more stories connecting real lives to real events. Until next time, keep your porch light on, your faith strong, and your heart open.